Hello, shooters, loaders, and casters. Welcome to the Georgia Shooting Connection Friday night live stream. Hope y'all all had a good week. We got a lot of folks here. We're going to talk about zinc, Andy. Kyle, do that thing you do.
Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're at. And I really do appreciate everybody in the side chat. We got a lovely panel tonight, and we're going to have a lot of fun. And it's a Friday night. We're gonna end up. So let's see where we end up. Go ahead, Mark.
You say me? Hello, folks. I must be lagging pretty bad, but I'll say hi. Good evening, everybody in the side chat. Good to see everybody. I can't see it at the moment. Anyway, nothing new here. We'll pass it on over to Mr. Viejo.
Hey, folks. Hey. Side chat's
You call him
lighting
the
up over there already.
Viejo?
Yeah, Kyle. You rascal, you. You ain't no good riding or walking. You know that? I tell you what. Hey, glad to be here. Thanks for the invitation. As always, it's a real pleasure for me to participate with this outfit. Good bunch to mix in with. So, Mr. Hot Pot, what you got going on?
Hey, evening, everybody. Thanks for having me on. I look forward to Friday nights every week. You know why? Because I need some schooling. That's why. I'm here to get some schooling on. And we got a good side chat out there. Good to see a couple of people we haven't seen in a while. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Very good. Glad you're here, brother. We got Mr. Mock Thomas. What are you up to, brother?
Oh, just making it through the week. It's been a long one. I didn't get to do much of any work down in the shop. The closest thing I got to doing anything near reloading was just looking through the manuals and looking up some loads for 223, but I didn't actually lay hands on any brass or lead or anything. So hopefully maybe we'll get a little bit of time this weekend. Tomorrow might be a little bit rainy. We're still going to make it out to the airsoft field, I think, for the morning, and then we'll see what I can do with the afternoon.
Good deal. Glad you're here.
Thank you for having me. How about High Boy?
We lost Mock. How you doing, High Boy? Thanks for being here, buddy.
I am doing fabulous because it's Friday and I'm here and I get to learn. So this is awesome, and it's always good when you have your loyal subscribers, but then you see the new guys coming in, and so what you're doing is for the better. And so this is an awesome group, and so I'm just always humbled to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you. And tonight we want to talk about precision reloading and brass prep and stuff like that. And I know most of the guys out there who are regulars probably know more about that than we do, and that's why we want to kind of depend on them to straighten us out if we get anything wrong. But the discussion's going to be primarily for new folks that want to get in on precision long range shooting and stuff like that. And I think the more we discuss stuff like that, the better we all get familiarized with it, and the better we all do in our processes. So I lost High Boy there for a minute. He'll be back. He ain't gone nowhere. He just got disconnected. There he is. There he is back.
Sorry about that.
So last week we talked about me shooting some zinc out of my 35 Remington, but Walter had already left and gone to bed by that point, and I wanted to make sure we got in on that. Andy, I'm going to make a video about that, and I'm going to do some test loads and try to find a node like you and I were talking. That's going to be a dedicated video, and it'll probably turn into 2 or 3 parts. But there's Dave Thorzax. What's going on, buddy? But
Dave.
I was shocked at how low the recoil is on that, and it just felt really good. And what happened with the 35 Remington is I loaded up some of my hunting rounds and took up there because Chris from the 740 said that he wanted to shoot 35 Remington, and Kyle was with me when we were developing that load. And at 50 yards, I was shooting one whole groups, and he said, "So stop, you're there," So, and that's what we did. And
I think my exact words were, "We're done now."
Something like that. But I loaded up some of those, and if y'all want, I can't tell you my powder charge, but it's Ramshot tack, and it's hot. I didn't remember how hot it was, but when I put those zinc rounds in there, those hunting rounds were just thumping, and then I put those zinc rounds in there, and I'm like, wow, that's like 223, man, and it was just and it's a really good bullet. I think it's 359 or 358. It might be 360, but I think it's 358 430. You know the one, CW, the blunt round top,
Yep.
and you sent me some
195. Yep.
You sent me some for Hollow Point, the NOE version, and I'm going to be.
Yep.
I will have that mold before I leave this earth, Lord willing, and that is just. I can do so much with that. I can. I'm working on getting it to shoot out of 350 Legend, and if I had a bolt gun in 350 Legend, it would. But it's that bullet, Andy. I think it in zinc it was like 119, 117. I forget exactly, but I weighed it before I started loading it, and that bullet. I'm going to get up and move around in here and see if I can find that box. I want y'all to see those things as compared to a factory round and my hunting loads, and then that load, and it's just that bullet seats so deep. And I called Andy. We wound up talking for 2 hours before I loaded those up, or while I was loading them. And man, I'm telling you, it was I didn't really keep track of how good the group was. It seems like it was about 2.5 inches at 100 yards, but I can get it under an inch. I know I can. I've done it before. And
it's a big old long bullet. I have it and cast some up and shot them in 38 special. They're not a whole lot of powder room.
Right.
They shoot good, Put them in
Mr.
357 magnums
Highboy.
and shoot them out the rifle. Yeah, it's quite a bullet.
Mr. Highboy, have you had a lot of experience with that bullet in 35 Remington?
I've never loaded 35 Remington. I want to. That's actually a rifle that's on my bucket list.
That was actually a fun endeavor between me and Jamie. We had a lot of fun with it.
I got 10 videos of load development for it, and 10 different powders, and a lot of guys. That I don't get a whole lot of views on my videos. I just don't. I've got 800 and closing in on 900 subscribers. Woo! I know. If Willie was here, he'd say woohoo! But that first 35 Remington video, which goes in depth as to how to go about loading for that cartridge, that that's my most watched video so far, and it's closing in on 10,000 views, which is a lot for me.
Can you share the link to that video? I'd like to watch it.
I probably can, but I
Yeah.
want to show these bullets first. Let me find these 35 Remington bullets, and then I'll find that video link and put it up.
You can also highlight it in your community page, so you bring eyes back to older videos.
I watched a couple of those 5 or 6 times.
Me and Jamie spent a lot of time at a local gun range trying to figure out these 35 rim bullets or loads, and it was just increasing our friendship every time anybody pulled the trigger. It was awesome, you know.
Yeah, I'll have to check and see. I know I've got a 2 cavity of that. Actually, Walter and Roger and I were just talking about that mold this morning. That 195 grain lead 430, 358 430. It's a big bulbous round nose bullet. It's not like a round nose you see in your mind for the 9mm or even the 45. It's more bulbous than even a 45 ball round. And it only a little bit sticks out of the case. It's very deep seated because it's designed for the 357. There you go. Let me see if I can back out of here and blow you up, Walter. Hold on. I've got it on full screen. Give me a second to back my screen out, and then I'll highlight you. As soon as my screen will let me. There. Where are you? There you are, right there. Nope, you jumped on me. Where'd you go? There you are. Full screen.
There it is. So that's that bullet cast in zinc. Mine, Jamie, mine weighed 121 grains. So, yeah, interesting bullet. Big old long sucker. And so imagine that thing shoved down into a 38 special case. There's not a whole lot of room, and you do have quite a bit sticking up. So with some revolvers, in fact, a lot of them in a 357 Magnum case, they won't fit. They won't work. They don't work in 357 Magnum in my Henry rifle because the nose is too long. But they do work in 38 special. So yeah.
So
I still got a whole bunch in here. I go shoot.
I bought an NOE mold that was close in profile. It's different. It's a different bullet. It's a rifle bullet where you can tell it's got a lot more nose sticking out, but it's very, very similar in profile, and it's able to be hollow pointed, and it works pretty good. You got to seat it pretty deep in the 35 rim, but it works pretty good, and it's 197 grains, so it's pretty close in weight. But anyway, I believe I've got a 1 cavity, and if I do, I'll send it along to you, Jamie.
That is the rifle bullet. That's the one. That's the one that CW sent me. That's a little bit longer profile.
Mm-hmm.
And then right here, I've got one of Andy's in zinc. What I like about the one CW sent me is a hollow point, but let's see if we can get those side by side, and you can see the hollow point there. I don't see a lot of difference.
Nice.
Okay, now watch this, y'all. See if I can do this. I have some of the 200 grain factory rounds, but I can't put my hand on them right
There's
now.
a MiG sighting.
MiG! And we shot up a pretty good bit of those. Okay, this is a 150 grain factory Remington core lock load. Those work good. This is my hunting load with the Lee 200 grain round flat, which is basically the 358 round flat extended out to 200 grains. This is a old Winchester 200 grain silver tip. That's a cool looking bullet. I don't care
I
who.
like those a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I shot a few deer with those.
And then this is the cartridge with the Andy bullet, zinc bullet. So it's way down in there.
It is.
Let me- There you go. So it's down past the shoulder,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but that's loaded with 27 grains, I think, of 42-27.
Boy.
27 grains. I can't
Jamie, you
remember.
noticing any powder with that?
Do what?
You noticing any unburnt powder with that load?
My hunting load, yes, but not with the zinc.
Gotcha.
Walks likes the silver tips and the core locks. So I just think that's a, you compare the hunting loads and the zinc. You see the difference in the overall length, but it's got to be that short because it's so blunt, and
Yeah.
and like Andy and I were talking, there's still plenty of room to load up. Andy, it seems like that velocity was right around 1750 with that load, 1850, somewhere in there. And Gene does have some video that I can put in that. He does have a clip that he's going to email to me to put in the video when I get it made. But basically, y'all don't need to see the video because you've already seen everything I was going to do in it. And my 3.5.
One of the nice things about these zinc bullets, you guys, if you're a caster and haven't done zinc yet, you can go watch some of Andy's old stuff. These guys, out of an iron mold at least, cast picture perfect every time. With our lead, oftentimes we get little flaws around the grease groove or something like that. These zinc bullets are perfect. Every one of them. You get no calls at all. At least I haven't. They just cast a wonderful bullet.
Well, Mr. Pollard says I can go much harder with zinc. Two things that Andy pointed out is, now remember these loads right here, the my hunting loads, with the Lee bullet, those are 38.5 grains of shooter's world of Winchester, not Winchester. Give me a second. Western Ramshot tack. Who would have thought tack would have worked good in a 35 Remington? But
darn right.
It's a very similar case to the 308. So
I use it in my 350. It works good in my 358.
So yeah, there's that. And that's
good stuff.
That's got my whistle wet. I don't think I'll ever be totally shooting zinc, particularly for hunting. But man, another thing Andy pointed out when we were talking that evening was, you put a couple of rounds through your bore after you've shot lead or whatever, and it just cleans it clean as a whistle.
Well, out here in California, we're concerned that eventually, and maybe sooner than later, lead is going to be banned for all ammunitions, including shooting ranges, public and private. They've already tried it a couple of times, and it's gotten shot down. So, zinc is probably the best way to go in lieu of zinc. So I've been kind of hoarding and rat holding all my zinc. I got 200 or 300 pounds of it sitting under the bench that I'm not shooting much zinc because I want to hang on to it in case I need it, because it's getting harder to get a hold of now too.
I'm starting to save my zinc after talking to Andy. Most definitely.
Zinc's an interesting deal. It's not hard to learn. If you're a caster already, it's not hard to learn. You just got to have the right pot for it, and and the right molds, and all your loads got to be worked up. But it's a viable alternative. Oh man,
that was a while back, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
$12.97. One of the reasons I started reloading was I went to buy a box of these, and it was $33 in the mid 2000 teens. So I'm like, yeah, this is the last time I'm paying that kind of money for anything. So there's that.
I snatched up about 2 or 3 months ago was $65.
Yeah. Wait till hunting season comes around. Now that Ruger's getting ready to put out the 336s and 35 Remington and 30-30.
They're proud of them.
That's going to do one of two things. It's either going to drive the price even higher, or it's going to make the price drop. Because if they make a bunch of it and it don't sell, then the price will drop. But it's been so long since they put out any 35 Remington, I expect everybody to be buying it up as hard and as fast as they can while they can, and then the price will go that much higher. But yeah, that load has plenty of room to work up. And the new 400 Legend, I got a glimpse of that, Andy. I hadn't looked into it yet. Another big thing I found out today. Are y'all ready for this? Most of you probably already know. Seems like I'm the last to know everything. Henry Big Boy revolvers.
$1,000.
Snap.
Wow.
They got it's only 38 357 4-inch barrel. The cylinder comes out like the whole cylinder comes out with a pin like a Blackhawk cylinder would. Beautiful revolvers though. You got a chrome brass back strap and trigger guard. Looks like nice bluing on it.
Are they single action or double action, or have you found
single
out?
Double, and they've got one in a cowboy type grip and another one in a bird's head grip. They're good, and they're right there on kind of the front page on Henry's website right now, but a little pricey.
Guys, I'm gonna say goodbye. Go pick up the grandson, okay, and if it's not too late, I'll come back in. So y'all be good, and I'll see you next time.
We'll be looking for you, Mark. Be careful, Mark, brother.
Roger that.
Take care of that grandson.
Yep.
Yeah, garage guy. Somebody sent us pictures in one of our group text things. I think it was New Tex I Can, wasn't it? Before we get into our main topic, I need to do something right quick. I want to ask for y'all to keep New Tex I Can's family in your prayers for comfort and peace. They've lost a family member. And also be in prayer for Six Shooter Texan and his family. He put in the up above in the chat that he's at the emergency room with his wife. So anybody that can, y'all be praying for her and for him while they're there. They'll get a good diagnosis and a good plan of treatment. And we wanted to talk about brass prep for long range and for precision. And some of the, and I've been researching it today, watching some videos, and there's Trapper and GGW. Welcome in, guys. So as I was researching this, what I found out today was the main thing that stuck to me was how everybody does it a little bit different, but there's give and take. There's with every decision, you have to weigh the pros and cons and make that decision. And I think the best place to start is at the beginning, and this shouldn't take too long. But I saw where some guys, when they come in with their rounds after they've shot them, they deprime them, put them in the wet cleaner with the stainless steel media. Some guys come in with them, throw them in a vibratory tumbler with corncob media, and they don't take the primers out. And there's Ocean 374. What's going on, buddy? And they were given the reasons why they did, and what they did. But one of the things were, if I wet tumble it with the stainless steel pins, I have to, number one, I have to wait for it and make sure that it's positively good and dry. And number two, the stainless steel tends to wear out the brass faster than if you just clean it in the corncob media. Thoughts?
I don't even use the stainless steel pins. I haven't had a need to. If I get really bad brass, I'll throw it in walnut shell, and then I'll throw it in the wet tumbler. But I haven't really had that dirty of brass to have to even do that. I find that I don't really see an advantage to peening the brass like that, especially the way I run it. I'll do it overnight, so it's running a lot more than 3 hours. So I'm going to do a lot more damage to my brass if I were to do that. I'll put it in, and then go to bed, get up in the morning and turn it off, or in the middle of the night, whatever. So for me,
I worry about that a little bit too with some of my handgun brass, the 44, 45 Colt, that kind of stuff, the 38, that brass is all pretty heavy, even the 9mm. And so I don't have a problem with the pins there. But I also shoot 44-40, and the necks of those things are just paper thin. And so far, I've just been wiping those off, old school style. I don't shoot that many of them anyway, and I just wipe the cases down. I'm chicken to put those in with pins. I'm afraid they'll get all dented up. They might not, and maybe I should try a few as a sacrificial batch, but the stuff's expensive, and I don't want to waste any. But so I just wipe those things off, and they shoot. To be honest, they shoot just as good.
D-Dub just mentioned there, Walter. I don't think you run pins either. You run odd shaped stuff too, right?
Me?
Yeah.
For DW? Yeah. Well, yeah. I use chips.
Yeah.
Instead of the pins now, and that's because they stick less in the flash holes and bridge less in the 223 than the pins do. So I use those little stainless steel chips. I ended up liking them better, but even then with the 44-40 brass, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I find that I think the advantage for the pins might be the primer pockets and inside the cases. But I find that the primer pockets, although they'll be tarnished out of the wet tumbler, they always rub right clean. I run them in the little wire. They always clean right out like nothing. So it's just superficial. And on the inside, I really could care less. It doesn't mean anything to me to be tarnished on the inside. When anything that's loose is going to come off in that water, and anything that stays on is not going to harm me, is my assumption.
Well, remember back when we were going through the switch from the vibratory to the wet, the big attraction was the two things. Number one, if you deprimed them, you could get those steel pockets, would get those primer pockets really, really clean, and of course fast. It was a lot faster. But everybody I've watched the video that does the vibratory still is talking about running the thing for 5, 6, 7 hours. Whereas
that's what mine used to take me, to get them to where I thought would be clean, and with a tumbler full of 500, I'll say 9mm cases or 200, rifle cases, an hour and a half, and they're done. With wet tumbling.
Hi, boy, your thoughts?
So years ago, I had a friend, and he had a very unique situation or setup, and he would develop loads and literally shoot out of his barn. My dad was always, into the vibratory tumbler, getting the cases clean. And I went over there one day, and he said, "Your dad worries too much about a case." And what's that? And so he showed me, he worked up a load, and on his cases, he would turn around, decap them, take the hand tool, clear that primer pocket out of anything. He would full length size, and he would sit there and develop loads. And then he'd say, "Now you can do this with clean cases, and your clean cases won't beat what I'm doing." And he would sit there and develop loads with the case that had been fired over and over, and the only thing he did was wipe it outside down, and just by hand make sure the primer pockets were cleared out, meaning there was no carbon in there, and he could develop loads really fast, and I never forgot that. And so I don't think anyone's wrong cleaning the case, but I don't think we have to go to the extremes that it's not a pearly trophy. If someone wants that, that's fine. But to get to where we're trying to go in the way of precision, I think that's a step we can overthink, And the best way to do it is develop your loads one way, and then redevelop them with just, literally hand wiping your cases down and manually cleaning the primer pocket out, and develop your loads that way, and really see if there is a difference. It's something that everyone should be familiar with. So with my 300 PRC, I'm trying to keep that in mind. I'm trying to keep things kind of realistic. Is it going to really benefit me? Is it is it worth my time? So we're all going to do things the way we want to do because we get things stuck in our mind. But I think the end result is sometimes we can overthink that. That's just kind of my opinion, and I'm not talking my personal experience.
I really like the cleaner brass myself, and being able to avoid the dust that we get to do with wet tumbling. And again, does that help with your, is that going to make your groups any better? No. I just prefer personally to deal with cleaner brass, and I don't like the dust that I develop with my dry tumbling method.
For me right now, what I'm doing with my 300 PRC, I'm trying to keep it as pure to the original brass as I can, and I'm kind of doing what CW is doing, go up there, decap them, and then, when I throw them in my wet tumbler, I just come out the next morning so that it runs for at least 7 hours, and then from there I throw them in my food dehydrator. But something really strange happened this week with that. That food dehydrator, it gets so hot that you can't really handle that brass when you take it out. And I've done so many 223 in that, so I came out in the morning, and I put all that brass into that food dehydrator, and I turned it on. Came home after work, and the garage was warm from that thing running, and that brass was hot. And it was 10 hours later, and I was pulling that brass out that had been decapped. There was still water in that brass. That blew me away. And I rolled them on a towel before I did that, and there wasn't like there was excess water. So that really spooked me. You know, I was like, oh my gosh. So I laid them on a towel, stuck a fan on them, and that did it. You know, I let it go all night into the next day. But so I don't know. I'm gonna that's enough said. You know, I don't know if I answered your question. You know.
Well, instead of the food dehydrator, I use an air fryer. A large platform air fryer.
Yeah, that ought to work. Anything that's convection, you know, that's going to move the air around in there like that air fryer will do.
Yeah, I mean, I do it 180 degrees for 20 minutes, and I can dry anything out.
Yeah. Sunshine works well if you got it.
Andy says that he puts his brass in a large pan, and he sets it in the broiler to 180 for an hour. That would never work for me, ever. I got to be about 205, and even then I got to check my brass.
You got to be careful. Got to be careful in the oven, because you can anneal that brass, or you'll anneal that case head, and then you'll have troubles.
Yeah,
you got to be real careful.
Yeah.
And the other thing about cleaning brass is, you know, it's going to keep your dies lasting longer. You know, if you're running dirty brass up in your dies, you're going to score them, you're going to scratch them, you're going to take life out of those dies. So it's something else to think about. Now, it's nothing wrong with wiping them off. Our fathers did that forever. That's what they did. That's how they did it. You know, they just wiped a rag and size them and use them. So there's nothing wrong with that.
You know, and that's
why it's like Highboy said, don't get too caught up. If you want it, great. If you just don't get too caught up like you have to have it.
And see, that's why for me, it is really hard for me not to clean it and run it in the dye. So, you know, for myself, I'm like, okay, I'm going to wet tumble, but I'm not going to go with the stainless steel pins. I'm just going to, that's where I'm starting.
Yeah, Dave's right. I agree. I've seen people make fine rounds, just bringing them in and wiping them down and going. You know.
Yeah, I can't believe that it makes a difference downrange. It makes a difference here to me and up my nose and stuff more than anything else.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, 20 years ago, I was wet cleaning. 30 years ago, I was wet cleaning brass. I wasn't tumbling it. I mentioned it in a chat a couple of weeks ago. It's Birchwood Casey's made this wet cleaner for brass forever, and that's what I always used when I would have brass that came off the range floor or off the dirt, you know, gravel, wherever you were shooting. I would throw it in a bucket. I would throw a couple capfuls of that in there. I'd put the cap on the bucket and I'd swish it around, and I'd throw it out in the sunshine and I'd dry it off, and then I would either use that brass, wipe it off, clean it, whatever, or I would tumble it in the media if I felt it needed it. But that's what it boils down to. You know, if you want to do it, more power to you. Just don't get caught up like you have to. As long as you're wiping it off, you know, as long as it's relatively clean when you stick it in your dies, you're not gonna harm your dies, and you're not gonna harm your firearms.
Yeah, that's something us on the panel hadn't brought up, but they have in the side chat, and that's the ultrasonic cleaner. The Scotsman uses one of those, and I think it does a beautiful job on brass.
I've used it a lot for firearms, for bulk carrier groups, for different things, but I haven't really used it for brass. but it would work. I'll see no reason why it wouldn't work. But it does a dandy job on a bull carrier group or on a small firearm if it fits in there. It does a great job. Take the grip panels off, all the mechanics. Like comes to mind is the Marlin Model 60. If you ever taken one of those apart, they've got 2 panels. You need about 15 hands and a couple extra eyeballs and a bunch of E-clips, and you don't want to take one of those things apart. But you can pull it out of the frame and dunk it in that ultrasonic cleaner, and it'll get that sucker clean like you can't believe, and you won't have to take anything apart, lose any E-clips or pins or parts or anything. However they designed that gun was just crazy. That thing is nuts to take apart.
I did a video on one about a year ago that I launched shit across the freaking garage and had to buy new stuff.
Yeah. The Ruger LCP2 22 Magnum is similar in its design. It's just flat plates, and there's a bunch of pins that go across and springs and little arms that come up and down, and it's a nightmare. It's very frustrating.
Well, I absolutely do not wet tumble in any of my brass because I don't have a wet tumbler. I just haven't bought one yet. I got the Harbor Freight vibrating thing and the walnut shell media. That's been working just fine. Leave the primers in, knock them out later when I'm going through processing. If it's something that really needs it, I'll try to trim them down, make them all uniform, look for cracks. We didn't talk about annealing yet, but only on stuff that's something's really going to be needed, or if I'm going to be resizing it, changing it from a 30-30 to a 32, then I would definitely want to anneal the brass. But then I probably will clean the brass again, whether it's just wiping it down or swabbing inside to make sure there's no lubricant. That's my process so far.
All right, let's talk about that for a minute. Where, what, when you got your brass clean to your satisfaction, what's your next step? Are you going to size it? You going to anneal it? Or where we at here?
Generally speaking, straight wall stuff for me doesn't see very much annealing at all. I haven't had any problems, any reasons that had to do it. I've run 57 quite a bit and hadn't had problems. Shoot a lot of maximums and 45 Colts, and I haven't had a need or seen an advantage to annealing it. I know it would be an advantage. It does help a lot with neck tension. Its neck tension is huge in reloading, but it doesn't seem to be a defining factor for my straight wall pistol stuff. With my rifle stuff, absolutely, definitely. And with anything I'm forming, if I'm making a case from something into something else, I absolutely always anneal it. When I anneal it depends on what I'm doing. If I'm going down in size, I'll anneal it first. If I'm going up in size, I'll anneal it after. And the reason is I find I get a lot less problems with my sizing when I do it that way. If I do it the other way, I have problems.
Say that again.
If I'm going down in size, so let's say I'm going, I'm taking a 308 and I'm making a 243. I'll anneal it first. So I'll anneal the 308s and then I'll run them through a 243 die and make 243s out of them. Then there's more steps that I do, but that's when I would anneal. But like when I made 30-30s into 375s, I anneal those after. Because if you anneal them first, you'll get all kinds of wonky necks. They'll be sideways, they'll be twisted, they'll be rippled, it makes them too soft. You're moving it too much. So I do it afterwards. So what you're doing is you're adding stresses and tensions when you do that, the reforming, but when you anneal it, you're relieving that. So when I go larger, I do it after. When I go smaller, I do it first.
I've been thinking about annealing mine every time for my 6.5 Creedmoor.
It won't hurt anything. It'll just make things balanced. That's the biggest thing it does for you. Every time you resize that brass, every time you fire that brass, you're work hardening it. Every time you crimp it, every time you move something on it, you're work hardening it. There's guys that anneal after steps. There's guys that anneal crazy.
Yeah.
You just find out what works for you. But if you did it with every reloading, it would be fine. It may be too much. You guys will tell you don't have to do that. But like everything else, there's guys that have never cleaned a primer pocket in their life and loaded and never had a problem. There's guys that have never deburred a flash hole, never uniformed a flash hole, never neck turned, never neck reamed, and they've been fine and had a great life of reloading. But there's other guys that feel that they wouldn't even shoot a gopher in the garbage can if it didn't do that to their brass. So it's just whatever works for you, whatever you think you need to do, whatever you've tried and has worked for you is what you're going to do. That's all we can all tell you is our experiences and what we do and what's worked for us and the reasons we decided to choose that and do that. It may not work for you. It may not be needed for you. It may not fit with what you do. And that's fine. That's fine. Try it. Try. And if it doesn't work or isn't needed, you don't see an advantage to it, don't do it anymore.
That's one thing that's true. You're in control of what you're doing with your stuff.
Exactly.
We're going to tell you if you do this, you're going to blow yourself up. Don't do that. So if it's something like that, we're going to tell you, or we're not even going to talk about it because we don't want you to even get the thought in your head. But this is not that. This is just different things you can do to possibly improve your groupings or your performance or your experience. Possibly. It did for us. That's why we're talking about it. But it may not for you, but you won't know unless you try it.
Yeah, Dave's got a good point. Just because everybody else is doing it don't mean that I should be. It means I should probably check into it. I should try it once or twice. It don't mean I have to do everything.
Yeah, somebody's talking about this brand new flavor of thus and such or though and such in some restaurant that does this, and you're going to want to go try that. So you go try it. And we say that stuff was awful. I couldn't stand it. It was salty. It was awful. It was bitter. All our tastes are different. That's why there's Fords and Chevys, and that's why there's blondes and redheads.
Exactly. So, and just because, I do it one way, all that means is that it works for me. Doesn't mean that it's necessary for everybody else to do it that way. And it's just like CW said, there are some things that are absolute taboos when it comes to reloading and whether it's the case prep or how you handle your powders and store your components. And there's some things that we just don't do at all and really aren't all that negotiable. But what we're talking about here is going to be based on your own experience. And so what we'll try to do is say, here's some food for thought, some things you can consider and go try. If they work for you, good. If they don't, then move on to the next thing right now. don't if your head starts hurting because you're beating it against the wall, then quit beating it against the wall. Go do something else.
I was shocked to find out today. There's Pat in a bunker. Y'all say, hey, I met him on Hillbilly. Speaking of which, where is Hillbilly? Is he gone?
He's not here.
I haven't
He's
seen
not
him.
here.
Is he gone to NRAM too?
I'm not sure. I know MacMan's out there. And then M1 Abrams is out there. I see him now.
Hey, M1.
And we're almost an hour in, and we haven't said hey to the side chat. So we got to come up with something for people to type in. Type in 270, and we'll say hey to you on YouTube.
Wasn't that the worst cartridge ever invented or something? What is that number? I forget.
I need to buy a 270. I had one. Got rid of it.
I love mine. Mine's a Seiko AV.
I've never owned one. That's not true. I did own one for a while. I've never had a desire.
Dear hate them.
I love them.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Let me get up to the top of this. Well, it goes back further than that. Wow, guys. We got CW in the panel and on the side chat. Speak of the devil, guess who pops in?
There he is.
Hey, Hillbilly.
Ears were ringing.
Hey guys, how y'all doing this evening?
We were missing you, man.
Oh man, I miss being here.
I was just calling out the.
Had some stuff I was trying to get done to get home, and oh man, this daylight being a little longer, it's hard to get done and get home time. But man, sorry I'm late, guys. I've been listening on my phone, so.
Oh, so that's why you came on in here, because we were talking about where is Hillbilly?
I literally walked in, got my computer running, and I heard you guys saying that. So I'm like, man, this is awesome.
All right, we're gonna call out the side chat. We got CW and Walter in the side chat and on the panel. Idaho Rogers USMC just popped in. There's Hasbro, Tommy Boy, Edward Petty, Walks Fletcher, Michael Hurtneck, Bobby Barlow, Ocean 374, Duffer 426, Tactical Fud, Wes, Georgia Trapping and Fishing, Pony _47, Jason Stewart, how you doing, brother? Pat in the Bunker, Andy 79Z28, GGW Outdoors. There's Michael Hurtneck again. There's Info Bros, Reloader 762, MacMan 039 Reloading, Hobbies Hobo, Michael Hurtneck. Idaho Rogers USMC says 30-06 is better. Harm, Hasbro, Papa's Place, Walks Fletcher again, DWD 37. There's M1A2 Abrams Tank, 76 Highboy Reloading. Thorzax is out there. Ting Ting. Reloader 762. Shot a Mini 270, kicks harder than my Ox 6. This would mind that. There you go. We'll let that one.
Andy cracks me up.
There's Pat in the Bunker. There's Chris from the 740. What's up, buddy? Y'all be careful up there, Chris. And I think we're up to date. Tactical Fud, I'm thinking about a 243 also.
You know, I've been hearing this 30-06 and 270 thing for a long time. Never owned either. I probably will one day. But at a reloading supply that I work at, when it comes to brass coming in, man, it's 10-1, 30-06 over 270.
Yeah, I don't doubt that for a second.
And I sort the barrels of rifle brass to come in because I can identify stuff pretty quick. And man, that 30-06, I got a 55-gallon drum filling up a 30-06 compared to a 5-gallon bucket of 270. So I mean,
that's interesting.
That's what's being shot. And we receive brass from we just got all over the country. We just got 6 bags in from Florida. We get it from California. We get it from Maine, Connecticut, Michigan, Ohio. We get it from everywhere across the United States. So 30-06 is shot 10 times more, from what I see, than 270 is.
You know what I think about that, high boy?
What's that?
I think of all the people that are missing out on the greatness of the 270 Winchester.
Well, so I think the 270 is fabulous, but I had relatives in my family that had the 270, and when you start getting into the big muley deers, and they drop the muley deer, and then they get up and start leaving, and the 30-06, they're down. I mean, they're just. And I took my moose with my 30-06, and he was done, right? So the 270 is an awesome little, whitetail. it's all comes down to shot placement. It really does. But when it's a little further out there and you need that extra hit, the 30-06 just punishes it. So I like it. I'm a 30 caliber kind of guy for hunting, so I like a bigger hole, you know. You know the nice thing about a 270? The ladies in our family loved it. Great rifle. The recoil coming off those, all the girls agree. They love the 270. They did not.
What are you saying, high boy?
They did not like that 30-06. Hey, I love the 270. It's a great rifle to shoot. It is.
22s are cool too.
That's exactly right. And the girls love those too.
What you talking about, Willis?
That's me, Walks. I've shot quite a few with 270 and 30-06, and I've never had one get up from either one of them. So, okay. So, back to the topic at hand. Hillbilly, we're talking about brass prep for precision rifle, long range / long range, whatever. So, MacMan said he deprimes, cleans, then anneals. That's basically what I do right now, but I'm thinking of going back to the dry tumbling after all the research I did for this topic today and watching all these videos. Guys like Panhandle Precision, the guy that used to be the Mopar Madman. What's his name? Dadgummit. Anyway, I can't remember what he did, but a lot of these guys that shoot in bench rest, and a lot of these guys. There's Jared Bear. He's back in with us, and he said 270. So all these guys that are shooting bench rest and these competitions are using the tumbler, the vibratory tumbler. A lot of them. I was shocked. So what's your next step after you anneal? Then we're going to size. When we get into sizing, we've got another debate. Are you full length resizing? Are you full length resizing with a bump, or are you neck sizing? There's 67 Rebel SST AMC. Welcome in.
At what point along the line do you trim your brass if you're going to do it? You're going to wait till after you size it? Or are you going to trim it first?
We're going to size first because the brass is going to grow. You can trim it beforehand, and I learned this from that guy. It grows after you size it, and then you have to trim it sooner. Ask him how he knows. 223 Remington, right, eye boy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you got even more than that, actually, Jamie. You got full length resizing. You've got full length resizing with a small base die.
Yeah.
You've got partial sizing with a full length sizing die. You've got neck sizing with a neck sizing die. And then, like you said, with the bump, you can adjust your full length sizing die to partial sizing, which is what you, I guess, could be the same as the bump. But when you're doing the bump, you're looking for a specific number on your shoulder. Versus partial sizing, generally speaking, would be guys looking to neck size with a full length sizing die, which is actually not neck sizing, it's partial sizing. Neck sizing die is only going to size the neck. It's going to be big dimensions inside the case body. Whereas if you use a full length sizing die, and only neck size. And you sit up the case and you pull your case down until it goes to the juncture of your shoulder and your neck. The way the case is designed, depending on the case itself, how much taper it is. If it's a straighter walled case cartridge like the Creedmoor is, versus a highly tapered case, let's say like a 3030, you're not going to be able to just neck size with the Creedmoor in a full length sizing die. You're going to be sizing more of your body because of the design of the cartridge. Whereas with a 3030, you're pretty much, because of the taper of the die, you're pretty much always going to be full length sizing. Even if you set your die to only kiss the shoulder, it's going to be touching all the dimensions inside the die. If you can follow my thinking.
Only thing I know about neck sizing is there's dies designed to do just size the neck, and those are pretty much well, the one I'm familiar with is the Lee, which is just a collet that goes around the mandrel.
Yep, pretty much most die manufacturers make neck sizing only dies for at least the popular calibers, and they're generally generous through the body because you don't want to size that. You just want to size your neck where it junctures to the shoulder, and maybe it has the ability to bump a shoulder, but generally speaking, it's just the neck.
What is the purpose of only sizing the neck?
That's a good question, and it goes to the firearm that you're shooting it in. Generally speaking, neck sizing is only something that's viable in a bolt action rifle. You can get away with it in all the other actions sometimes, depending on the cartridge, the pressure it's run at, how much the brass can contain. Lower pressure stuff, you could probably get away with it a little bit, single shots and such. But bolt actions have a camming power when that bolt turns and pulls that is better than all the other ones. So if you tried to do neck sizing in, say, a pump, you might do it one time, but you're not going to really get away with it much more after that. You're not going to be able to close the pump all the way because you don't have the same camming power that you do with a bolt action. What it does for you is it better centers up your brass in the chamber. It's a little more precise for everything fitting perfectly. So that's what it's doing for you. It's just a little better precision on your fit in your chamber of your rifle.
So are you relying on the actual chamber of your rifle to do if you're going to shoot the same brass, do the same rifle consistently?
And that's the key. Good point. We mentioned that. You want to make sure that the brass that you're neck sizing comes out of the chamber that you're shooting it in.
Okay, so you're letting the chamber size the actual sidewalls of the case.
So you're only using to that size, yeah.
So you're never going to size that because you're using it in the same chamber repeatedly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sized to that chamber.
Yeah.
So you're only going to worry about the neck sizing now.
Right, for bullet tension.
Okay.
This is the way I've always thought about that. And Gene, eventually you're going to have to resize, full length resize that brass because it's just not going to fit in the chamber anymore. But the way I've always thought about neck sizing, and one of the reasons why is when that charge goes off, that brass has to expand. What if it's already expanded and all the energy inside that round is not being used to spread that out, but to push that bullet? It seems like to me it's contained. It's not like the pressure is going to go anywhere till the bullet starts moving anyway, but it seems like you'd get a more consistent bullet push down the bore if the brass was already at the size that it's
that's a part of it. I guarantee that's a part of it.
Milliseconds of anything working come into play.
They all add up. It's all cumulative. What's that word? Cumulative.
Cumulative.
Yeah, that's the
cumulative
word. It's a tongue twister.
So yeah. See, now I'm starting to look for 6.5 Creedmoor, and I called my local gun shop today, and I've got one put back. I'm gonna go and give him some money on it. But it's really nice too. I went ahead and spent the money, and just went, cry once. But
did Jamie have anything to do with that decision there, Gene?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. That and my homework on things. I just want to I want to step into it, have something viable, reliable, and something I can play with out of the box. But I need to know these things about reloading for this because of having consistency. I want to shoot 1,000 yards consistently with this.
Nice.
So Jamie was telling me something about when the neck itself creates an internal donut, an internal roll from where the actual neck meets the case. What about this?
Say it again.
Want to take this besides me? The donut you can get in the neck shoulder junction with the brass. Yeah. You want to take it, High Boy?
I can't hear what the question is.
The donuts you can get inside brass from resizing.
The donuts?
Yeah. The brass kind of moves inside the brass case, and you can get a shoulder donut. They call it a donut.
Elaborate more.
It's something that occurs resizing brass in the neck of the case that can cause pressure spikes from when you fire the bullet, the case expands. It's like having a very thick neck. Not turning your necks from sizing from larger cases. Like if you take 35 Whalens and you make 6mm Remingtons or 6mm 243s or something out of them, you got a lot of brass. You're squeezing down to a small space. You're going to have very thick necks, so you're going to have you've got just so much room inside the chamber. So when you fire a case off, the brass has to expand to release the bullet, and it can't reliably. It can't with enough space. So it's I'm grossly elaborating, but basically a donut is a thickness in the neck of the case that doesn't release the bullet when you fire.
So is that happening like right at the shoulder?
Yeah,
where is
shoulder,
okay.
the shoulder and the
that
neck junction.
At the junction there, that would make sense. Yeah.
Me and Jamie were talking about this. Now, what I believe is happening inside that case, because you're getting that roll and or donut on the inside of the junction, what's causing the gases, after the gases fires, the gases to come up into the shoulder and then roll back into themselves, creating that spike issue before it releases out of the neck into the projectile.
If you've got enough pressures to move brass in that area, you're way over pressure.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to move brass like that with normal pressures, 60,000. To move brass like that, you need upwards of 100,000, and it's just you got so many other problems if that's the cause of it.
You're saying what's causing that is during the resizing process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're moving the brass every time you push that mandrel down, and if it doesn't go all the way down through, if it's stopping, you're creating a little shoulder in the neck of the case.
I've never formed cases from one caliber to the other. So, I've read articles where it was mentioned, but I never heard of it called as referred to as a donuts, but makes me want a donut though. But that's interesting. The brass has to go somewhere,
Unless you're cutting it away, it's going somewhere.
Oh, absolutely. And I understand these factors because of, racing motorcycle career. I understand the aerodynamics and the flow of things. Aerodynamics is the eternal flow of everything. So I run by the junction that everything is everything. So if it's this way with this thing, it's going to be this way with that thing.
Yeah, it's moving the brass around. but you're not going to get it. You're not going to get it from pressure. Like I said, because
no. I was saying it may create a pressure spike.
Oh, for sure it does. That's exactly what it does.
Yeah, because of the gas is rolling around back into themselves before they eject the
Projectile.
projectile.
Well, basically, it can't release the bullet with the same amount of room. Like if you've always got a thousandth and a half of room when that neck opens up and releases the bullet, because you've got a 15 thousandths neck, and you throw a cartridge in there with a 20 thousandths neck, you've taken away all your extra room to release that bullet, so you can have pressure spikes. This is part of the reason, and I wish Mike was out there and the Rebel was out there, because this is a big thing that happened with the blackout. Because when you're forming 300 blackout cases, your neck of that blackout case is a chamber wall of a 223 case.
Uh-huh.
When they make brass, manufacturers are not so worried about the consistency of the chamber walls, because it doesn't matter. That's where your case volume comes from. So Remington will have a little more case volume than Winchester in a given caliber, or the other way around, or Federal will come in with a different one, or Starline will come in with even less. That's all from the thickness of the brass and the volume that's left inside for the powder. So when you take a 223 case or a 556 case and you make a 300 blackout out of it, the neck of the blackout is the case wall of the 223. So if you look on a lot of forums, there'll be lists that the guys make that are brass that's just no good. Don't use this brass for making blackout. And the reason for that is the case walls vary so much that it's a problem for the bullet release. Now you can go in and you can ream, which is turning the inside of the neck, taking the brass out, or you can neck turn, which is turning the outside of the brass, removing brass to thin it down to the proper dimension, which is something that's always something you should be doing when you're taking a bigger case and making it smaller, because that brass has to go somewhere. Mm-hmm. So like I just said, like in say a 35 Whelen and making, I was trying to think of a small diameter. I guess 270 would be the best one. So if you're taking 35 Whelen brass and making 270 Winchester brass out of it, which is perfectly fine to do, there's a lot of brass in that 35 Whelen that you're shrinking down to 270 or 277. Whereas if you take 277 brass and make a Whelen out of it, you're taking the thickness of that 270 neck, which is going to be 15-ish thousandths, 17 thousandths. You're expanding it to 35 caliber. Well, it's no longer 15 thousandths thick. It's going to be 12 or 11. But if you take 15 thousandths thick 35 Whelen necks and squeeze it down to 277, you're going to have pushing 20 thousandths necks, because that brass has to go somewhere. You're making it smaller.
Yes.
You're not removing brass. You're just moving it. So it goes somewhere.
When I make my 300 blackout brass, I dedicate all of my 556 brass. I sort it. And I only make 300 blackout out of 556 brass.
That's one of the good arguments about head stamps when you're making blackout brass. Mm-hmm. To have consistent head stamps, because generally speaking, it's going to be pretty close to the same case volume, depending on lot numbers. If you've got, if you're using stuff that's really old and stuff that's really new, like PPU, somebody's mentioned PPU a couple times in the side chat, and that's a good one to mention, because PPU was always awful brass. Well, we destroyed their factories, and we had to give them all new stuff and build up their factories. So now they've got factories, PPU, on all the most modern equipment as any modern manufacturer here in the States. So PPU brass now is as good as anything you're getting from any other manufacturer. But PPU brass, before we bombed them off the face of the planet, was awful. So there you go. Old PPU brass and new PPU brass. I won't use old PPU brass. It's awful. It's garbage. I always threw it away. But the new stuff for the last 10 years or so, is great. So
let's talk about this comment right here. Tommy Boy says, when people talk about the donut that's from inside reaming, my understanding is the only way to get rid of that donut from firing the brass, sizing it down, pulling that reamer back through there seems to me what's causing it, that your expanding ball. And from what I understand, inside reaming all the way through now, not stopping where the neck stops, but reaming that all the way through into the body of the case where it's not touching anything is the only way to get rid of the donut rather than what's causing it.
I think you're drawing it back out would be a major relief for it by taking it down into the empty chamber of the case, and then pulling it back through is what's aiding in getting rid of it.
Well, we know it's a thing because it's talked about quite a bit, but I have never really experienced it. Never had an issue with it. Never had to worry about it myself. I just haven't seen it.
So if we're neck sizing, which is something else we'll do after we in this chain, most of the guys you see that are neck sizing are using an outside neck turner, and that seems to be
it's something you do. It's when you turn the outside of necks, just so everybody knows what's going on. You're going to have a little device that's going to look a lot like your manual trimmer, and basically it's a little manual lathe. And basically what you're doing is you're uniforming the thickness of the brass in your neck. So you've got a little bitty cutter and you got a little crank, whether it's mechanical, motor on it, or your hand, and you're turning that and you're taking the brass away all the way down to the juncture of the shoulder and the neck. You're removing brass. And when you do it, you'll notice that it'll remove from one side and not the other on some pieces of brass. Some pieces of brass, it'll take everything off all the way down. Some pieces of brass, it'll only touch it where the crimp was. And that's because that's the varying thicknesses of the neck of your brass. Mm-hmm. Generally, it's not that different when you're using all the same brands, but it can be because there's different lots and there's different places the brass came from and life's experiences for that brass. All those things have factors. And what that's doing is it's uniforming your case neck, which is uniforming your neck tension, which is everything, or the biggest portion of what you're going to do to affect the accuracy of your reloading. It's making consistency in your neck tension.
Amen.
Which is why you anneal. Same reason. It nullifies all that hards and softs in the brass, and it lets the brass hold the bullet the same for each case versus a work hardened one that's really stiff and hard and one that's brand new. Like how many of you have bought Remington ammunition and found it, or brought Remington brass and found the necks all dented and mangled and not even round? Remington is very soft brass. They have very, very soft annealed brass, where you buy a Starline and it's usually nice and round and very, very seldom dinged up. There's a little bit harder brass.
Winchester brass too. Go ahead, Hillbilly.
I was going to say thanks for explaining about that donut and stuff, because I literally thought that I'll start shooting now. I'm going to look at my spent brass for a snack. So I'm glad you guys, I don't know, I thought you were talking about a little.
In case you're hungry, you get donut. Yeah.
Always have a snack out there on the range.
I think the major thing is when we leave the range, we go straight to Krispy Kreme.
Yeah. But I do know a lot about metal fabrication, different steels, and most usually donut, like you guys were talking about it. A lot of times it happens from a stretch, either a pull or a push. Either one can cause that, shrinking or swelling at one spot. So I don't know much about the brass shells, but yeah, I've seen that in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I was and there's one guy that's a bench rest shooter, and what I'm talking about bench rest shooters, these guys are shooting one hole groups at 100 yards, and
wow,
I'm talking about they're winning and losing matches by thousandths of an inch, as how big that hole is. And that one guy was talking about when he puts his when he takes the expanding ball out of the sizing die and he uses a mandrel, and then he doesn't wait He goes from that straight to the next step because he knows that if he does, that brass is going to start to creep back out. And I'm just not that paranoid, guys. I mean, I love shooting 1,000 yards, but at the same time, some of this stuff is. Good night, Andy. Thanks for being here, buddy. Y'all
Good night, Andy.
Good night, Andy.
And
Good night, Andy.
we have a Preacher's Day off sighting. What's up, Preacher?
Hey.
There's my buddy Dwayne.
Dwayne.
Hey, Dwayne.
Now, Jamie, when you shot my 6.5 loads I brought, now I loaded them I just loaded them by the book. So how many yards did you shoot those?
I shot him 1,000.
You shot them 1,000, and they hit low. They weren't up by the black dot where yours is at. They hit low, but they still shot 1,000, and they still shot a decent group.
They did, and they were a grain and a half under what I was loading mine. And mine at the 1,000 yards, I was hold on, let me tell you exactly. At the 1,000 yards, my velocity is 1,191 feet per second at 1,000 yards. And if it's not over 1,100, it's not going to pick up.
So mine were still pushing 1,100 at 1,000 yards.
Yeah, that may have been one of yours. At 800, I'm getting right at 1,400 feet per second. So it's dropping fast out there. And with High Boy with the 300 PRC, I think he's going to have a little more velocity further out. But I did show y'all one thing.
So you setting your chronograph down there at that 1,000 yard right in front of the target?
No.
Well, Chico would. If Chico was there, he would.
I'm
But
proud of this.
you know what, guys? For my first time ever loading 6.5 Creedmoor, I went straight by the book. I think it was pretty good. Those were mine.
Jamie?
I can't really get. This is my 300-yard target.
Awesome.
Jamie, what bullet were you shooting in the Creedmoor out there? What's your bullet weight?
140 grain Hornady hollow point bolt tail.
140, not 142s?
No, the max bullet. Not the ELDs, but just the regular max bullets. You know, there's about $15 per 100 difference in the price.
Yeah, I seen that, so I bought the boat tail hollow points.
The 142 is the only match bullet I've ever shot in my 6506. But this is way before Creed was even thought of. There was never the 308. While Marlin wasn't even out. None of those were out. The 30 wasn't even thought of yet. So it's long time before that. And that bullet shot really good for me. But I played at 300 yards. That's the farthest I've ever shot that rifle.
This group at 300 yards is half MOA, 2,001 feet per second average, and a 16.5 standard deviation.
And what do they have? They must have screens in front of the targets. They have to, because they you're not even looking at actual targets. You're looking at a computer rendition of your bullet hit.
If you look at that picture, you can see the outline of the tablet. We're looking at a tablet.
Yeah, I was watching Chris's video, seeing the bullets show up.
Right.
Yeah, it's got a sensor on each corner of the screen. And you're actually shooting an actual target. They've got targets they put up out there. They redo the targets all the time when they get shot up. But the sensors are what's picking up the shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how you can get velocity for your shots. That's pretty cool. That's really cool.
It's really neat to shoot there. I like the way they got that set up with the tablets, because there's no question where you hit. You know, spotting scopes are only used for for hitting the steel at each yard line before you go to the paper. So you have, the range officers there, and you have to hit the steel on the side first. You got to be dialed in for that before you can start going to the target. And then
because they don't want you shooting their sensors.
Yeah, exactly. I got a little close a couple times with shooting that 300 blackout at the 600 yards, but I did it. I got a 300 blackout to 600 yards with a red dot. Red dot.
I'm curious, did you guys ask them like what kind of money it costs for that whole target system or whatever, where you get, basically what you guys were seeing, is you had your sensors, then like it hit, feeding back to the tablet. Like, is that a lot of money per, target? Or
well, the range officer will tell you it costs this. Don't be shooting at my $1,000 sensor out there.
Or we're going to have a conversation.
Yep. Yeah, we're going to have a conversation. So when you get close to him, if you're trying to dial something in, you get close, you just clear your screen off before he comes over and sees it.
Let me see if I can do this, y'all. We're talking about the donut thing, and Ozark was talking about his 308 has a fluted chamber.
Mm-hmm.
Show y'all what that looks like. Can y'all see that groove in that piece of brass?
I see that a lot.
Yeah, that's why. It's out of an AR-10. What caliber is that, Ozark? Is that 308, 6.5 Creedmoor? What do you think?
That's 308.
It doesn't look like a Creedmoor.
No, that's 308. I sort thousands of those. Literally.
So what does that mark?
That's from the inside of his chamber is fluted. I don't know the purpose from it.
As they get hot, when HK does it with a lot of their firearms.
Yeah.
And I get a bunch of 10 millimeters out of 10 millimeter brass out of Virginia, and they're shooting it down there in the sub guns, and it's all marked like that. It's even more distinct than that. You can see it in the shoulder and down the walls of the case. You can see the lines, not just that little carbon line you see on the neck. Look on the shoulder there, and then the wall of the case. You can see the stripes.
That's wild.
It's just less surface area for the chamber in it. The brass is supporting everything.
Y'all want to see an extreme case of it? I got one here.
So what, Gene?
Look
Look
at
at that.
Yeah, there you go.
So yeah, I'm probably not reloading that.
Most definitely not, but I see so many of these. I just picked up one and threw it in my pocket and brought it home. I think it's
looks
cool.
like a Ruffles tater chip.
It does.
Yep.
But man, it is it's hit. I think most of these come from the machine gun shoots.
Yeah, it's more a machine gun chamber design.
But I mean, it is rippled. I mean, you can feel it really, really deep.
Yeah, that's wild, man.
Crazy.
All right, so where are we at? We got time. Well, we got a little more time tonight, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, Gizzard Gary is at the show, so he's not going to have a chat tonight.
So we ain't hearing much from Highboy and Mark Thomas. What are you guys thinking?
Rip it up, Mark.
Well, some of this is way above my pay grade. I'm still fairly new, and I'm listening and learning, but I don't have much to contribute at this point.
Well, I know Highboy's doing a 30-30 reloading thing tomorrow morning, workshop tomorrow morning. I think you'll get a lot out of that, Mark, if you can get up and well, you'll be at the airsoft thing, but if you can watch that when you get back.
I'll be at
I can
NRAM.
watch it while I'm there.
I'll
Do
be
what?
at NRAM, but I'll definitely watch that.
So I can watch it while I'm there. He goes out and plays. I just sort of sit there in the woods and enjoy myself. Fresh air.
Well, are we going to talk about primer pockets then, Jamie?
Yeah. There's Floridian. I was going somewhere with that. Oh, 30-30. You know, a lot of people tell you that 30-30 head cases off the rim.
Head spaces.
Head spaces, yeah. I'm like, mine are going to do both, and they do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason for that is that shoulder, that gentle sloping shoulder. They just didn't think that it would be as good. But yeah, oftentimes, and it goes for a lot of rimmed cases. You can set them up so that your head spacing off of the shoulder as well as the rim, and that's how I had to make my Harrods, 357 330 caliber Harrods shoot well. I couldn't make them shoot good until I was really conscious of headspace on the shoulder and the rim together. And then they started to shoot really good for me.
Yeah.
Good night, Ozark. Glad you stopped by, and thanks for sharing that picture with us, man.
Good night, man.
Yeah, that's when I was watching a high boy workshop on 30-30 one day, and I was telling all the stuff I do in the side chat about trying to make my 30-30 shoot right. And high boy says, dang, I don't do all that for 30-30. And I didn't know what to say after that. But yeah, the problem was for me, and y'all can correct me, but for 30-30, I was getting like 11 thousandths of shoulder growth. And I knew that if I kept on like that, my brass wasn't going to last long. So I started bumping it back like 3-4 thousandths instead of just 2 for a bolt gun. It is a lever. I wanted to make sure it was I make sure it's chambering, but yeah, 3 to 4 thousandths, and then I was head spacing off both, and it just shot a whole lot better.
Well, I agree with you on that. The reason that I size it back to a Sammy Min is because I got multiple lever action. You know,
right?
That's why.
Also, the lever action design is such usually that they lock up in the back, so they generally have a spongy bolt. You've got a lot of bolt movement, whereas a bolt action's got the lugs in the front.
Yeah,
so you've got just a tiny bit of steel to move, and it's not going to move much. But in like a 30-30, that those lugs are 3-4 inches behind the head of the case.
Yeah,
it's not much, but it's enough that it's mushy. You know, it moves.
Yeah.
When you get pressure up, it's the reason it works is because it runs at like 42,000 psi or cup. So generally, that's the brass can hold that generally. So generally, it's not an issue. But you start pushing things, you know, you get 45, 47. Now things start happening. You start seeing that jump in shoulder. I found a lot when I got my little 340 bolt action 30-30. I started loading that different. And when I first started shooting that, I shot my regular old cast bullet loads in it, and it shot okay. You know, it shot 2-3 inches at 50 yards, and it was fun and good to shoot. And then I started talking with a couple other guys online, and they're saying, no, that 340 can really shoot. You gotta start being a little more conscious of your shoulder bump and let that brass get out and you know, mark that brass out of that gun and start playing with it, treating it like a bolt action rifle, you know, like you did your 06 or whatever. And I started playing with that, and I started seating the bullets long so they're out into the rifling, and that rifle will touch holes. And it was a $200 piece of junk, rusted up Savage 340,
Yeah.
you know, that nobody wanted 20 years ago, and it'll shoot bullets in bullet holes.
Well, and so now for me, like what I'm loading right now for my 30-30, I am bumping back about just, you know, a little over 4, maybe 5,000, you know. So, but that's going to be for my specific rifle, my Marlin. you know. So, but either way you go, you know, uh, it'll be interesting. I want to try these two bullets from Missouri Bullet, and I'm going to clock them. I'm going to put it on paper, so it should be interesting to see the accuracy I get.
Yeah, I wake up at night dreaming of a 30-30 and bolt action. I just do. And uh, you guys that are all you 300 blackout guys, Hot Pot's one of them. Yeah, I'm like, um, dang man, get a 30-30. You don't have to do that. So
Yeah. You keep your eyes open, Jamie. You can pick up them 325 Savage, 340 Savage, 788s came in 30-30. There's a couple of them that were offered in 30-30. And they pop up from time to time. The Savages are probably the most common. And you can generally find them, unless they're really nice, for good prices.
I'm not sure anymore that there's such thing as a good price on a firearm. Just
Hey, I do want to show CW something. So back when I was having a hard time finding components for my 300 PRC, well, I acquired some Ruger 375 brass, and so what I'm going to do, I'm going to be
Sure.
Guess what?
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so when you're talking about the donuts, I guess I will let you know what happens. I don't know when I'll get around to it because I'm just so busy and working my loads up for my 300 PRC. But I think once I get them loaded up, then I'll mess with these and see what kind of accuracy I can get. And it should be interesting. But you know, I've never got into that. But when I couldn't find it, I thought, well, a reloader's got to do what a reloader's got to do. And a good friend of mine
Sure.
gave those to me, and I was like, perfect, that will work, you know. So that'll be my first time doing that. I've never done it.
Yeah, when I built my 6506, I had the chamber cut from 270, so it's actually 6.5 270 because it does have a little bit different dimensions than a 3006. My chamber, and it was I did it for a couple reasons. Number one, 270 brass is a little bit longer, you know, at the shoulder. It's a little bit different dimension, and it also is less material to move to make 6.5 264 from 277. So that was my reason. Plus, I had a whole pile of 270 brass, but I've made it out of 06 brass too. We just got to fire form it.
So I'm gonna kind of, Jamie, if you don't mind, I want to kind of pick CW's mind on, you know, he talked about all the different ways to resize brass. Instead of saying, would you neck size or would you full length size, let's say, what's the disadvantage to neck sizing and what's the disadvantage to full length? You know, I want to get your input, and I'll tell you why. I'm kind of more of a full length kind of person, and I also think that whether your press has cam over or not kind of plays into that, you know. So I'll let you kind of put your professionalism on those two questions.
To me, cam over is required for any bottleneck cartridge.
Mm-hmm.
Non-cam over is only really viable in straight wall pistol stuff. It's all I'll ever use it for. I'll never not have cam over for a bottleneck case.
Yeah.
And then advantages and disadvantages. Well, you're moving your brass a lot more full length resizing if you don't need to. I do neck size for a couple rifles pretty religiously. Others I have played with, and like my 300 blackout bolt action, I bought a set of Lee dies just to try them. And I bought brand new brass, and I only shoot that brass in that rifle, and I fired it a couple times, and then I started neck sizing it, and I did see an improvement in accuracy, more because of consistency. I didn't have occasional flyer that would destroy a group, and we're being picky. I've got some groups that are literally 5 and 6 bullets in one 40 caliber hole. That rifle just shoots way better than it has any right to for costing $400.
Mm-hmm.
But when I went to the neck size brass, I wouldn't have those quarter-inch away flyers anymore, and it sometimes it really makes a difference, and other times it's like I don't see the advantage here, so you just don't do it anymore. Yeah. My father's 06 that I have really responds well to neck-sized brass, and he started when he loaded that. He never had neck-sized dies. He always had regular Lyman full-size dies, and he just backed them off. The way that he did it was he took a candle on a piece of brass that was fired in that gun, and he sooted up the neck. Got all kinds of carbon on the neck, mm-hmm. and then lubed the body of the case, and then ran it up in the die, backed the die off, ran it up in the die, and looked at it, and turned the die down a little bit, and did it again until that carbon was removed at the shoulder and the neck juncture. You can see it just kissed the shoulder, so you weren't bumping the shoulder, you were just touching it, and he locked the die there. Now that's partial sizing. It's not neck sizing. He called it neck sizing, but we already explained the reason and why we're calling it that. And I have that rifle today, and it really responds. It loves 165 Sierra Game Kings and 4064 powder, and it will touch bullets at 100 yards with that neck sizing from the brass from that gun. I have my grandfather's 03A3. That thing shoots about 4-inch groups with neck sizing brass. It just doesn't like it. It won't shoot. And I have no idea why. It's really funny. It's a 2-groove barrel. But that gun shooting 180 grain bullets with 4350, 55 and a half grains, I think it is. Seated out just a few thousandths off the rifling will touch bullets too. But each barrel is different. Each gun is different. But that's full length sized. That's bumping the shoulder. Mm-hmm. And keeping the bullets just a few thousandths off the rifling, and it'll shoot as good as you can. Mm-hmm. So you just got to try them and see what your gun likes, because like we said in the beginning, I can tell you what I like. I can tell you what works for me, but the bottom line is what works for you. And even more specific is what your gun likes. Because it doesn't matter what I like, what you like. It doesn't matter anything at all. It's what the barrel wants. And you got to learn to learn how to understand what your barrel is telling you.
Good stuff. Thank you.
So what are we going to talk about? Primer pockets, uniform. Do we uniform them? Do we get the what do you call it?
Flash holes?
Flash holes. We deburr the flash holes, all that kind of stuff. I got some stuff that I should probably go back and show. I have this particular caliper. This is just a cheapo from Harbor Freight, and I got my Hornady stuff on here. And this is a bullet comparator, but I also have the case length comparator. And I use that to set up my sizing die as far as how far I'm turning it down to. I'll measure I'll put like a fired case in there and take an average of, say, 5 of them. And then I'll zero it and then turn my sizing die until I get it down to 2 thousandths where it's showing -2, and I'm good. And that's one of the things. you get where's the tool? I also have this Hornady product, which is
Yep.
goes in there and tells you where you pull it.
Yeah,
Needs
pull it
to
off the
be.
rifling.
And then well, I've got another one somewhere. But when it comes to your, you've got your bullet comparator set, and then you got your cartridge headspace gauge bushing set. Um, the thing that's killing me right now about this tool is it takes what they call a modified cartridge, your Hornady modified cartridges. I stopped at Cabela's last night.
You can make them, Jamie.
I know those things are up to $25 a piece.
Yeah, you
That's
can make them.
ridiculous.
All you need is a quarter 28 die. Tap.
I have that written down somewhere on a piece of paper in here, and I have the drill bit and I have the tap. So I'll be making one in 30-06, whatever. And then again, you can just take a case and cut the neck.
Cut a slit in the neck. Yep.
And basically do the same thing. Just close your cartridge on it. But you got to be very careful not to.
Yeah, you don't know if it moves when you're pulling it out or slides,
Right.
or you're always
No,
questioning
say
yourself.
that again, Jamie. Cut the what now?
You cut the neck like a Dremel tool.
Mhm.
So the
Cut a
bullet,
slit in the neck.
you want it to hold the bullet just enough so it doesn't move. But be able
I'm with you.
move.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I've got some of those somewhere. Look at that 44 special dummy round right there. Chromachrome and
That's
a
nice.
nickel plated brass is.
God, yeah, I just got some chromochromes. I wonder who from, and I got some nickel brass for it too.
Good stuff.
It's beautiful.
Here you go.
I mean, in real life, man, it's what Jamie shows us does not do it justice.
So you just cut a slit in there and take your pliers and squeeze it up, put your bullet in there. That's a 30-30 case. I'm going to make a 30-30 modified cartridge because maybe something inbound for the channel. So that'd be cool too.
Yep, I've made a few of them. Not too hard.
And plus, you can make it to fit your chamber. They're modified cases to a Sammy spec, so it's not a true fit, right?
I'm not sure. It seems like they tell you if you're going to send, and they'll make you one out of any cartridge, where they'll tell you to send them 2 or 3, and it seems like they want them unsized, but I'm not for positively sure. Primer pockets.
Yeah, you would want to send it unsized. That way, it would be a pretty close match to your chamber.
This is. Go ahead, Eyeboy.
I use the Reading Universal Primer Pocket Uniformer. And you know, the cool thing about that is like you only have to do it once, but I do it with every case. I do that right off the bat.
That can save you a lot of frustrations.
Well, and you know that your primer is going to seat the same for every case. And then, of course, when like on my Lapua brass, I didn't use the flash hole deburring tool. I didn't need it, but normally I would.
Not on Lapua brass, but on everything else. You need one of these.
Yep. Right there.
Yeah, it also uniforms the flash hole. If
Yeah.
there's
It does. That's important. Actually, you go from a hole sticking up through there with brass hanging all over the top of it to a spout shaped more like that, so that it's getting it up in there.
Got like a funnel shape to it.
Right. So
And
this is a good tool.
they've got a shoulder on them, so you can't cut too much. It'll only cut as far as that shoulder will allow it.
If you adjust this properly.
Well, that's just holding it centered for length. There's actually a shoulder near the cutter.
Yeah,
So
the cutter
it
has
won't
its
go in. It'll only go so deep.
Yeah. The pilot, it keeps it centered to the flash hole, and then on your cutter, it will only allow it to go so deep into that flash hole. So it's perfectly aligned and it's perfect on depth.
More money, more tools, more time. Geez, man, you guys are killing me.
So CW, would you have so on my my Lapua brass, for my first initial loads, I wanted to do as minimal to it as possible. And then once I get my shot groups, then I thought, okay, from there, I'm going to go into doing more with it. But would you have, on the Lapua, would you have used the primer, the flash hole deburring tool, just for the fact that you're chamfering that or putting that funnel in there?
I would, but that's just because I'm anal about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Whether it really is needed, is. I guess if I had a pile of it and I did it a few times and I wasn't cutting anything, I probably wouldn't.
Yeah, it was really hard to not do that. I was like, I always do that, but I didn't, and I'm going to fully develop these just based off that because I want to know, and I'll do it without it, and I'm going to do it with it, and I want to see if there's a difference.
Right, exactly.
That's what it's all about, is experimenting, finding out what your gun likes or doesn't.
I don't have much experience with Starline rifle brass, but their pistol brass doesn't have burrs in the flash holes. And so, I inspect every one of their pistol brass. There's never a burr in there.
They don't
flash
have
holes
burr.
are they're very uniform. So
if they cut it, it's probably not going to have it. If they punch it, it will.
Doesn't look. I don't think it's cut. I think it's the way that I don't know if they've got an anvil on the other side of their punch or what, but
yeah,
because it looks like it's gone up and roll crimped around, kind of is what it looks like.
Could be just their process. They may punch the holes soon and then form the rest of the case. So there's a mandrel in there or something.
Maybe, but so it's not necessary, at least with their pistol brass. But I don't know about the rifle brass. And that flash hole uniformer, you can chuck that up into your case prep center too.
Yeah, that's where mine is. Mine's in my case prep center.
Yep. Just got to make sure you don't run your hand into it because it sticks out there higher and everything else.
Here's a good question. So Backman is saying, "Hi, boy, did you neck turn your new unfired brass?" No, and I can't say I'm a fan of neck turning. I'm more of a fan of taking the brass as you get it and turning the necks and matching it that way. What's your guys' thoughts?
Well, I would definitely measure the necks that you're making from that 375 because you're making it small. That brass that's going to have extra brass there. So
that's going to be different. I'm just saying, the standard straightforward brass fit to your caliber.
Generally, I will if I'm really anal about trying to make it as good as I can do it. But generally speaking, no, you're right. I won't. I don't. I do always when I reform, but generally I don't for just loading 3006 or whatever.
I'll be honest with you guys. Like, I think the most work that I have in front of me is the guy behind the trigger, me. I'm really going to have to, for me to see, is there a difference between doing this to a piece of brass versus this to a piece of brass versus how well I do behind the trigger? I'm really going to have to really refine my basics and really concentrate on my marksmanship skills and get that down before I really could ever tell anyone what does and doesn't work. For me, I think that if I could just be honest with you guys, I went with the 300 PRC because it'll go so far, and I would just like to be able to, hit certain targets at a certain distance. I don't really know that I'm the guy that's gonna, do these incredible shot groups, and I don't know that that's me, but I do think I'd like to get. I was thinking, a 243 and getting it set up for long range and going after coyotes. So, my shot groups I think are going to be based off more my abilities than all the fine things I'm doing in my case. Not saying that I'm not going to really experiment with all this, but I'm going to have to refine my skills. And I think there's going to be a point where next year I'm all the way out of debt. I won't owe any bills. My truck is all I got left to pay off. And then I'm going to go get some instruction. I mean, I need to go to a professional and say, show me what I'm doing wrong and get me lined out. And I think that's, for me personally, that's where I have to focus.
Mm-hmm.
Just call 1-800-HOT-POT. I'll hook you up.
I was saying it. I would really like to go up there with you guys next year. I told Jamie that I would like to go to that Dead Zero with you guys. I think that would be great,
Yeah,
we'd love to
tell you. When I started playing with that 6mm a couple years ago, I had a whole pile of brass that I was picking up here and there, and then I lucked into some brand new Remington primed brass from a local guy, and I started turning necks because I found that I had some real problems sizing the brass, and I didn't know what was going on. Turned out I had a out of spec sizing die set from RCBS, and I sent it back to them, and they acknowledged that it was undersized. What it was doing was it was actually removing brass. It was actually scraping brass off around the case head, and it was used brass, so I didn't know what it was out of, and I just assumed that it was probably out of a Remington Auto because they're notoriously fat chambers, and I figured that the guy was maybe a hand loader. Again, I'm totally speculating and guessing because I have no idea where the brass came from, and I speculated that was the case. And in my pursuit of trying to uniform everything, I started turning the necks in those, and I couldn't believe the difference I found with that brass. I had some 244 brass, which is what the 6mm was called before it was the 6mm. Remington made some changes and designs, and when they smartened up and changed the twist, they also changed the name. And I was finding that the brass was junk. It was awful. I mean, I was hard cutting off 2 or 3 thousandths off one side of a neck, and the other side wasn't even touched. on many, 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 many cases. So I was trimming them down to 13 and 14 thousandths to try and get them uniform, and I still wasn't getting them uniform. I ended up not using that brass for anything specific accuracy, striving for accuracy, because it just varied so much. I bought brand new brass. I actually bought some Petersons, and that brass was beautiful, beautiful. So, there is an advantage to buying good brass when you're trying to pursue accuracy. Spend the money on it if you're really striving to get the best that you can get out of a rifle.
I agree.
If you're just
Tommy Boy is talking about how he thinks his opinion of Starline rifle brass is junk. That's all I'm using in 6.5 Creedmoors to go 1,000 yards is Starline.
He had some 223, I think, that was all splitting on him, and he can't get any response out of them. So he's not happy with them at all.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah,
but if you're shooting 223 out of a bolt gun, that's one thing. But if you're shooting it out of an AR, that's such a violent action. Nothing surprises me out of 223 brass. And Tactical Fud's got a question: is neck turning a one-time thing? And I responded that I think it is, unless your brass lasts a really, really long time.
Yeah, if you're getting brass flow up in the neck, you've got some other things going on. Like I was talking to Gene about the donuts, talking about just shooting it and having the brass flow that way. You're going to get brass movement through your case head where your web is, and that's something that I think we've all had videos or chats about it, talking about that little ring you get just a little ways up from the rim of the case, and it's because your brass is going to stretch there. That's where your brass is the thickest down in the web, and the thinnest where it comes down into the walls of the case. So that's where you're going to see the stretch. You're going to see a little light spot coming around. And a lot of guys will say, oh, I got a headspace problem. Well, maybe you do, maybe you don't. But that brass is moving, and that's where it's going to move the more you shoot it. So if you keep pulling your shoulder back, bumping your shoulder back, 10, 15 thousandths and then shooting the gun, you're creating your own issues with headspace. So it may not be your gun. It may be something that you're doing as a reloader. But in any event, that's where it's going to move under pressure. You're not going to move up in your neck and your shoulder because of pressure. And if you are, you're way above where your operating pressure should be, because you certainly can, move brass with pressure, but it shouldn't be happening at 50, 60,000 PSI where your gun should be operating.
Yeah, I think neck turning should be a one-time thing.
Yep.
For most brass. And I think with the primer pocket stuff we were talking about, that's definitely a one-time thing, because your primer pockets are going to grow this way and not this way, because everything's moving that way. I know that makes no sense. That's just the way my mind works. It makes no sense sometimes.
No, it makes perfect sense.
So yeah, your primers will be falling out of the primer pockets before you have to uniform them again. So there's that. Questions or comments down there, Hillbilly? Up, American Hillbilly?
Yeah, man, it's a great show, man. I'm soaking it all in, learning a lot. One thing I would ask you guys, especially since you guys been to Dead Zero and shot that 1,000-yard target, I know you guys use your own reloads and everything, but is there a difference? Like if you're going to for competition, shooting that 1,000 yards or maybe 600 or whatever, would you buy the new brass, new bullets, or would you does it make a difference if you're using already a spent case and like casting your own bullet? Like, I mean, how much of a difference if you was like trying to, like you was talking about earlier, putting a hole, bullet inside of a bullet hole, targets, for several yards. Is there any better using a new brass rather than a spent brass? The accuracy.
When you go to see bench rest shooters and F class shooters, you're not seeing new brass.
Okay.
All of the brass that they're using is shot at least 3 times.
Okay.
And that's just fire forming it and stuff. Now they're constantly buying brass and rotating brass out. They'll shoot them 10, 11, 12, 15 times sometimes, depending on how well they're able to take care of that brass. But they're fire forming it once, then they're testing their loads, and they're getting that brass. That's part of their case prep for those guys. Okay. Now, what we do go up there hitting 1,000-yard target is nowhere close to what's going on in F-class shooting. They're talking about 10 rings and X's, and sometimes somebody will hit a 9, and then it's like, wow, did you see that big fat 9? Yeah, like that. Whereas we're glad to hit the target at 1,000 yards. Right? So, in no way are we trying to compare what we're doing with what they're doing, because they're on another whole level. But what you'll hear scores of they're shooting 20 rounds, and like they'll say, I got 200 with 15. That means they hit the 10 ring all 20 times and 15 X's. So the X is the ring inside the 10 ring, right?
Yeah.
And it could be a pimple. It could be another ring. It depends on how far away they're shooting.
Right.
Yeah. So necessarily, like, the new brass is for them is not what they want then. Correct.
No, they want their brass broken in and fire formed, and they want to know what it's going to do. Tommy Boy says new barrel brass.
New barrel, new brass. New brass is unproven brass. So I like new brass, and if I've got something really special, a special hunt, a special shoot, a special something, I may buy new brass, but I'm not going to use it there. I'm going to have shot it once or twice already in that gun, so I know that it's proven good, fit to my chamber brass.
Oh, okay, cool.
So another way to answer that would be new brass would be sized the same size as new factory, which would be, let's call it 0 for a SAMI minimum chamber. That means the ammunition that you buy is going to fit in everybody's rifle. It has to. That way it will fire in everyone's rifle. But the advantage the reloader has is we can better fit it to our rifle's chamber. So I think what you're asking is in developing your loads, do you start with new brass? Yes. But what you do is when you fire it in the chamber, it's now a more closer blueprint of your chamber. In other words, factory ammo isn't going to be as accurate through your rifle as one that's fire formed. So if you loaded up the new cases and went to compete, it would be like shooting ammunition off the store shelf. It's really not going to be accurate. But once you fire form it in your chamber and develop the load, now it's matched to your rifle. And in your mind, what you got to think of is a center boreline axis. Think of taking the bolt out of your rifle and looking down your bore. If your case is too small, that bullet's not going to line up on that perfect center line bore.
Yeah, it's laying in the bottom of the chamber.
Exactly, yeah. So once you fire that, that case is going to now fit, and when you chamber it, now it's going to be full size in that chamber, and that bullet is going to be perfectly aligned to your bore. See, the fact of the matter is, like, my 300 PRC shooting my first loads. Think about this. If we can call factory 0, my 300 PRC is about 7.5 to 8. So if I was to take a factory 300 PRC and shoot it, it's about 8 thousandths too small for my chamber. I'll get pretty good accuracy, but I'm not going to win any competitions because it's really not fit. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, all that makes sense. And yeah, thanks for all that information, guys. It definitely makes sense now.
I make brass 410 shells. I make them out of 303 British.
Okay.
303 British is a very tapered case. And the reason I use 303 is because it's got a very nice rim diameter that matches up with the 410. It's got a nice rim thickness,
Cool.
matches up better with the 410, but the diameter is way smaller. So I run I anneal it, and then I run it through a bunch of different mandrels to get it as fat as I can get it. And then I charge it up with some really fast powder, and I fill it up with cornmeal, and I pack it down hard, and I fill the end with wax, and then I stick it in the 410 and I shoot it. If I stick that in the 410 and shoot it like a regular gun, just like this, that case will swell up on one side. I'll have to do it again and again, maybe 3 times before I can get that fit to my chamber. But if I take that same brass, do it the same exact way, and shoot it straight up in the air, generally I get fully formed, nice pieces of brass. And that's because it's not laying in the bottom of the chamber and expanding up. And when I shoot it straight up in the air, because it's a blank, there's nothing in it, just cornmeal.
Yeah.
When I shoot it straight up, it's expanding on all sides because it's more centered in the chamber instead of gravity pulling it down to the bottom of the chamber.
Makes sense.
Follow me? It actually works. I've seen it 100 times. I didn't believe it when I first saw it. I thought, that what's going on here? I don't have enough pressure. I didn't anneal the brass right. Tommy boy, 444s don't fire in all 410s though because of the rim thickness. I like them too, but they're different. 303s worked better for me in my 410s.
That's such good information, dude. That's awesome.
We have a sighting, Jamie.
Y'all ready?
Oh, yeah.
In 3, 2, 1.
Hey! I had to jump back in the chair for that one. Hey, Mario.
Yeah, there's a couple different cases you can use, and 9.3 by 74R works really good too, but it's also very expensive. 9.3 by 74, you can load 3 inches. With the 444 and the 303, you can only load 2.5s.
Far out. All right, we're at 10:16. Y'all want to start going through the room? I got an early morning in the morning.
Yes, sir.
I hope this made sense, and I hope somebody learned something, and if they did, it'll be worth it. God bless you, Mario. Hope everything's well, brother. So we'll start with Mr. Hillbilly Up. What you got coming up Saturday night?
Yeah, we sure do. Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Central, 9 Eastern. We got Guns, Beer, and Therapy, and we'd love for everybody to stop by. We try to have a lot of fun in there and just have a good time, So, I actually released another video today on the High Point GXP 10mm pistol. So I got that out there. I got a bunch of videos ready to roll out. We actually had about 2 weeks of nice weather here, so been shooting a lot of videos. But anyway, I want to tell you guys, thanks for having me on. I always enjoy it. Look forward to Friday night. Sorry I was late this evening, but man, this is a lot of fun. I mean, side chat, panel. I mean, I don't do reloading myself, but as I listen to you guys and you guys talk, things more clear, it starts coming into my mind. Okay, it's making sense and this and that and what you guys are doing. Yeah, I got a book here that I'm taking notes in. So, when I do decide, at least I got a little bit of a head start, I'm hoping. So I appreciate you all a lot.
Now, what time is your live stream tomorrow?
I'm sorry. It is. I thank you, Jamie, for saying that. It is 9:00. Yeah, 9:00 Central Time. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's 9:00 Central Time.
So that makes it 10 p.m. and the only time zone that matters.
Oh, God's sake. Yeah. Some nights are hard to
check
live
on that.
Jamie.
I'm pretty sure it's 9.
That's right, Jamie. You tell them.
Hey, by my dad. Good night, buddy. And let's see. Somebody else said good night earlier. I guess they're already gone to bed now, but Walks Fletcher said good night, everyone. Night, Walks.
Good night, Raj.
Talk to you tomorrow,
okay.
Roger.
There's Elliot. What's going on, AR Guns?
Hey, Elliot.
Okay, who's next? Walter, you next?
Okay. Yeah. Again, we really appreciate being here with all you folks on a Friday night. I look forward to it. One of the first things I say when I get up in the morning on Friday is, yeah, it's Georgia night.
It is. It is.
Oh, yeah.
And so I really look forward to this. It's a learning experience for every one of us. We all learn from each other all the time. So it's great from that aspect. And you guys know me. I'm no rifleman at all. So I'm sitting here and it's all soaking in. Hopefully it'll stay there this time. I don't know if I go like that, it might come out. But anyway, yeah. Hey, I got a few things going on. I got a Moldy Monday coming up again, and I've got enough molds that I haven't used to run that for a year, doing one a week. So I was just going through my collection today, trying to mark down, I didn't do this one, I haven't ever cast this one, and then I got 2 or 3 more inbound. So we're going to keep running that until I run out of molds. So that's going on, and I had that new Baby Browning 1911. That's a fun firearm, you guys. I didn't think I was going to like that little pistol that much, so I put out a video on that. I got a couple more ammunitions to run through. I've run, I think, 7 ammunitions through that already, and it ate everything that I put in it. So a couple more to try. So I'll do an update on that. And I'm working on an update to that standard deviation video, too, to include a couple more things that I left in that. So that'll be coming up in a week or so. So that's me. Good to see everybody in the side chat. We really appreciate all you folks coming in and yakking it up with us.
Thanks for being here, brother.
Mr. Thomas.
Mr. Thomas.
Oh, well, not sure what's going to be coming up this week. I don't have any major stuff in the works, or at least not enough that I know that I'm going to be able to make a video on anything. But just staying busy, and as always, pleasure to be here. Great way to spend a Friday night. Looking forward to it all week. Thanks for having me. Appreciate everybody in the side chat. Great questions, and I have learned a lot. And even if I didn't learn, at least I got something in my head now I can think about, and I can ask some questions and look some things up myself. So been a great evening. Love being here. We'll pass it on over to Highboy.
Well, when I get up in the morning, I'm going to brew my coffee. I'm going to do a live stream on my 3030 Winchester. I might do a live stream Sunday, but starting tomorrow about 10, we're going to start having families show up out of state and coming from across the state. We're going to have to be doing some landscaping. So I won't be live streaming on a Wednesday I have my Wednesday Bible study or Thursday. And the next weekend, I don't know if I might be missing in action with because just so much family going on. So that's what my schedule looks like. And I really appreciate the invite being on. I always appreciate being here. And it's great always soaking up new information. Um, and with me starting my 300 PRC long range journey, it's all going to help. So you guys are great, and I appreciate you having me on.
Well, thanks for being here, brother. What time you think your live stream in the morning's going to be?
I don't know. It's when my eyes wake up. Actually, sometimes I'm having coffee at 4:30 in the morning, and I could make that happen on some Saturdays. So
That's going to be the middle of the night here, man.
that will put you guys about 6:30. I would say I'll be live between 6 and 7, no later than 7.
Eastern time?
West Coast.
West Coast. Okay, so I'm got a trip tomorrow, so I won't be able to join you tomorrow, but
That's okay, brother.
so let's go over to Mr. Gene at the hot pot and see what he's got working on this week.
Well, High Boy, us here on the right coast call that the left coast. Just saying.
What's that? I didn't hear that.
Just saying. Nothing. Never mind. Disregard that comment. There's a piece of sand in the wind. It'll scar a car somewhere. Oh, hey, thanks for having me on. I had a lot of good questions, and I got a lot of good answers, and I got a lot more good info that I really need to start reconsidering everything since I want to start shooting long range. I really enjoy a dead zero. Last September was great. This month was great. Had a great time. I love shooting out that far. And I'm interested in starting to learn how to fine tune things. Tomorrow, I will be at NRAM with Jason Stewart, meeting up with Chris from the 740 and the other side of the family with Clover Tack and Gizzard Gary and all of those characters. So it's going to be a good day tomorrow. Thanks for having me on. It's been a great chat. Lots learned. Thanks for schooling me.
Thanks for being here, brother. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
CW, you working on anything this week?
Yes, I am. I don't know if you guys caught my video from the other day, but Dwayne 7834 sent me an awesome package. I just want to thank him again. I think he signed off already, and I was sorry to see him say goodbye, but maybe he's still listening. I wanted to point that out. He sent me a couple of reloading presses. He sent me 5 or 6 reloading dies, 5 or 6. Molds, 3 or 4 reloading dies sets for the Lyman 310 tool, which fits in the junior, the Lyman Junior. And I just want to thank him so much. I am going to clean all this stuff up because it's been sitting in a garage or a barn, I think he said, for about 4 years. So it's got surface rust on everything. I'm going to get everything all cleaned up and see if I can make some people happy. We're going to spread the love. And we had some comments about learning stuff. And something I always like to pass around is we stop learning for 2 reasons: choice and death. So every one of us can learn something from every one of us. And that goes for every person you meet, whether it's a 6-year-old or a 96-year-old. There's something there to be learned if you pay attention. So keep your eyes open. There's a reason God gave us 2 eyes, 2 ears, but only 1 mouth.
Amen.
Amen, buddy.
So I've got a couple of molds that I want to do a video on. I've got them started, and it's hopefully going to be interesting because they are molds that haven't been around for a long time, made for obscure cartridges that can be used in modern stuff. But I'm going to do kind of like a Walter Moldy Monday, where I'm going to measure them and weigh them and I want to do a little research on where and what they were designed for, because literally one of them is probably from the 20s, if not the 1910 range.
Mm-hmm.
It's old. Another one is going to be from probably the 20s or the 30s, but it's a newer mold. It's probably a 40s or a 50s mold, but it's from a bullet that was designed for way back when. So it's pretty cool stuff to me. I find it crazy interesting. So hopefully you all will too. And I'm going to do that over the next few days. Maybe I can get some of it done tomorrow or over the weekend. But that's my plan. There's some pretty neat stuff. I got some of the stuff cast and some of the stuff videoed, but I want to do a little bit more in depth on each one. So whether that'll be an all 5 or 6 molds at one time, or I'll do individual videos, we'll see how much rambling I do. So they're not too awful long. And that's about it. Who knows what else the time's going to bring, but that's what I've got planned and what I've got coming up in the short term. I want to thank everybody for the comments. I want to thank everybody in the panel. It was a really good time, a really good chat. I know I missed a bunch of stuff from the side chat, and I apologize. I was trying to pay attention to both what everybody was saying and what everybody was writing, and I know I fell down on a few accounts on both sides. So thanks everybody for showing up. It was a really good time. I enjoyed myself. I always enjoy you guys, and the side chat just makes it even better for us.
Dang sure does. I got tickled watching your video on the CW set. I got to hurry through this. I don't want it to be a half an hour video. Newsflash, it wasn't. It was 27 minutes and 30 seconds. I want to thank all you guys in the panel for joining us and helping us make the show go. And all you guys in the side chat, thank you for being here. We wouldn't have anything to anybody to talk to if it wasn't for you guys. Y'all guys, if you got topics that you want us to cover, let us know. We'll be glad to. I am actually in the process of learning a new software for video editing. I hope to have that out this weekend at some point, and got a lot of video ideas that I'm going to be working on. So NRAM is this weekend. A lot of the guys are off at the NRA annual meetings, and I have no idea who's doing a chat, where, when, what, or how. Like Gizzard Gary's off tonight, the reason we're still on. So with that, we'll just say keep your eyes open for these other chats. Hillbilly, one more time. What time is your chat tomorrow night?
Okay. Well, I guess I had it right the first time. And then you asked me, and I got a little confused. I'm like, no, wait, maybe I'm wrong. But Elliot helped me out there. Yes, it is 10 o'clock Eastern time for you guys. So that's what it's always been. So, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, no change on it, time or anything like that. It's the same. I was thinking about some other stuff when you asked that, and I'm like, I said it right the first time, and then I got feeling like, wait a minute, maybe I'm wrong.
So 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central, 8 Mountain, and 7 o'clock Pacific. So
you betcha, buddy.
All right, check out Hillbilly Up tomorrow night. We hope the Lord blesses y'all all real good. And if he's willing, we'll see y'all again next week at 8 o'clock next Friday night. Say goodnight, y'all.